Most people are probably going to try to waste your time by telling you like the Samsung, S90C is X, Y, or Z with a long drawn out video. We're not even 10 seconds in, and I'll tell you, just buy it. It's a great television. That is literally as fast as anyone's going to tell you. Now I'm going to dive into why that is, but smack a like on this video if you like people just spitting it out, getting to the point, and not wasting your time. The Samsung S90C basically does everything it needs to while keeping the price where it should be for a TV that is the next generation of TV technology. This is a quantum dot OLED, as many of us know, which means you have quantum dots, and that adds a lot in the way of color. And I mean a lot. But this in particular is beyond what I expected in terms of its HDR performance. I think that's where a lot of people are really going to be impressed, especially given that it's not the flagship S90C version, so there were some drawbacks made as far as the quantum dot filtering that was selected. Now, if you do have the option between this and something like the Samsung S95B, I probably would go with the S95B instead. Now, it's not like the S95B is, going to be the only TV on planet Earth to give you a great picture, so I don't want you to feel like if you can't find it, then it's just all over and you shouldn't buy anything, because this is an excellent alternative. And the reason I say that is because of the way it renders contrast and clarity. It's just a tack sharp TV, and there's no getting around that, no matter what you watch or what you do on the thing. Another thing that makes this TV really a treat are the internal speakers. The speakers are damn good with a ton of really solid bass for a small room. You do not need a sound bar. You can experience low lows, high highs, and great mids. Audio is clear, vocals are clear, and it gets to the point where, if you have a sound bar, crank this thing loud enough and you'll forget that you even have a sound bar, because this thing would replace it pretty decently in a small enclosed space. Like, I'm not joking. It gets really, really impressive. The form factor is really nice. Unlike the Samsung S95B, which obviously is the Gen 1 QD OLED, this one has a screwless stand assembly, which I really appreciated, because it just makes getting the whole thing set up and put together a lot easier, which, come on, who doesn't want it to be easier? Come on, we don't want to sit there all day having to adjust and reconfigure, and it's a lot less fiddly, and I like that about it. Now, in terms of the cinematic quality, it definitely does fall short. So maybe something like an LG C3 or an LG G3 would be a little bit better in terms of cinematics. And what I mean by that is, like, Samsung unfortunately doesn't have the best color paletry on this particular model, to where there are moments where you'll see shades of color, for example, that just appear way too cold. Blue and purple being the biggest colors that you're going to struggle with. Now, of course, there are people that will argue left and right, but this is just how it is. Unfortunately, the Samsung S95B will probably be better for that, and so will the Samsung S95C. They can do a lot better in terms of making sure colors don't get as cold as this particular model. Now, if you rather or prefer a cooler color temperature on your images, then this is kind of a moot point for you. In terms of gaming, as you guys see, I'm gaming here in Forza Horizon 5. I'm enjoying the experience in HDR, which is a rarity. I don't typically game in HDR, like HDR, make settings for HDR, or even recommend HDR. But what Samsung has done with HDR over the past few years has truly been incredible, and this is no exception. I'm truly enjoying the experience. I don't have any problem with the experience, and I think a lot of people will feel that way about it. Now, doesn't mean that it's perfect, but as far as TVs go, Samsung really does give the most options as far as how you can adjust HDR, specifically when we talk about gaming. I don't think at this point, if you're a gamer, any other TV makes any other sense, because not only can you adjust motion processing, which, again, good luck finding a TV that'll let you do that in game mode, but in addition to that, you have all of these ways you can adjust the static or active versions of your tone mapping. You can go HDR advanced, HDR basic, HDR, 10 plus. The options are just there. And then if you're not satisfied with what you see, you can go in with a dynamic black equalizer and pump up the shadows and be super creative with what you can create. Samsung's tools for the gaming aspect of HDR are just mind-blowing. And even regular HDR. So if you're an HDR fan, it kind of just makes the most sense to go with Samsung. Now, I know the immediate concern for a lot of people is like, well, I like Dolby Vision, and then in which case, well, I guess you'll have to keep looking. But I'm going to tell you like this, Dolby Vision is not as good as HDR10 right now. The colors usually wash out a lot more and the brightness isn't as high. And honestly speaking, with what Samsung is doing with HDR10 Plus, this is it just makes so much more sense, and I'm telling you, you'll be happier with this particular version of HDR. Now that aside, I can say this, out of everything that I've seen on the market, especially in this price range, I mean, this just makes the most sense. It's kind of the no-brainer TV, especially once you start looking even outside of the price range and you start trying to find a bigger, like, 77-inch TV, for example, and you want something that's a high quality, but you're not trying to pay that Sony price tag. This again makes the most sense. So I think for those who want a solid set that's going to provide the absolute cream of the crop picture quality, albeit not beating out the predecessor that came before it without the flagship price, of course, this again is going to be an excellent option. So I think this honestly is something that a lot of you guys will probably end up buying, especially once it gets towards Black Friday. I do have settings for HDR, SDR, so you're good over-the-air TV, that kind of thing. But I also want to hear what you guys think about it yourselves. Do you guys think this is a solid pick? Because frankly, I think this is one of the better TVs to come out this year. And again, it's definitely highly recommended. I want to thank you guys so much for watching the #1 brand in honesty. If you have questions about this particular model or any others, make sure you drop it down below. And until the next video, I'll see you guys later.